there sure is. I mean, I see it on social media. There's, for some people, a big emphasis on peak bagging for the sake of completing a list, earning a patch, and being able to say that they did a certain hike or a certain summit.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's, look, if that's what you enjoy when you go into the woods, that's what you enjoy, and that's good for you. I mean, it's good to get outdoors and to do these things. It's also good to play tennis if you're into tennis or golf. People need to recreate. There's nothing wrong with recreation. I'm all for it. But the problem is there's more as we have more and more people populating the world, and we have urban sprawl consuming more and more land and natural features. What happens to our right to recreate? The Catskill Mountains it's only so large. The area is only so large.
The bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
All right, I might sound a little low, Ted, because I got a cold. I think it was from the Sum 41 show when I went into the pit for some of their songs, into the mosh pit. So
you do so at your own risk.
Yes, it was a fantastic. We got there. We went down to our seats. So Jessica and I got seats because we knew that we wanted to sit because we're old and our knees would hurt. So we chatted with the security guard that was right in front of us, and I asked him, I'm like, even though I don't have this admission into like the general mission area, the pit area, can I go down in there? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll let you go down. So we watched the first band, and halfway through the first band, he has to go. And we're like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to get down there. All of a sudden, Jess puts down her drink and sees that there's 2 general admission tickets down there for your wristbands. So I'm like, oh, beautiful time. That's my faith in humanity.
Yeah, well, I would think with a pit area, there are no rules. Everything goes, right? So you need a special ticket to get into the pit. I'm unaware of such a thing.
Well, there's where it was a general admission ticket. Mm-hmm. And then anything outside of that, you kind of pay a little bit more for because you have seats. So you're touching everybody and stuff like that. What did I don't want to hear about the touching. Okay. Don't tell us about how you touched everyone. It's a little creepy. No, not at all. I got this cold somehow, and I'm thinking it's through there. But my friend said sometimes at shows it's called butts to nuts. It's horrible, isn't it?
All right, folks. Well, that's it. We're going to end on a high note tonight. Butts to nuts. You heard it first on Inside the Line. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Quickest show ever.
What did you say the last show you went to was again?
The Cure. Madison Square Garden. I think it was 2017. Fantastic show.
So was it all seats?
Yeah. I'm going to say yes, it was all seats.
That's horrible. That sucks. Yeah. So you can't.
I kind of get that. Before that,
we saw to join the pit and something like Just Like Heaven and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's good music. A lot of good memories there for me. I remember that when that stuff was freshly cut vinyl back in the day.
Dude, it's still. They call it classical now, which is insane. But you still get the butterflies when you hear stuff like that. The Cure, Duran Duran. Always stuff. You can't help but sing along with it.
It's good music. I don't know about any of the current music, if it's good music and if it's sing-along music. I think I grew up in a period of time in America where some of the best music ever was being generated.
and not just, pop, but, in terms of metal, rock, classic rock, stuff like that.
Sure.
80s and 90s were that era of where the talent was absolutely insane.
Well, I'm talking the 60s and the 70s.
What?
I'm a couple decades older than you. Yeah. So
wait. How old are you?
I am 61.
I thought you said you were like 50 something the last time. 51.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this so long now. How many years have I been doing this? I started before you on this. This is like my 324th show on Inside the Line. I don't know where you were for the first 200.
Damn, son. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
I was doing this podcast back when it was great.
Well, you look very well for 61. Holy shit. I gotta
Stop
say
hitting
that.
on me, and I want to hear what was that, butts to nuts. Let's, okay.
No,
This is,
nothing. But we'll go beyond that. But
you're not recording, are you?
100%.
I got to speak to my publicist. This is wrong.
What is it? What do we no holds bar? Nope, nothing. So apparently, we have, we talked, like a week or two back about the great solar eclipse that happened. Well, actually, it was like a month ago, but it's still pictures were going up and we were all kind of getting sick and tired of it. So now we have a geomagnetic storm that takes the East Coast by like insane amounts. Everybody's posting about it. Blah, blah, blah. I say blah, 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 because I didn't get crap here. I had cloud coverage, nothing. I have my Fitbit and it buzzes I had it set to every hour to where I could go outside and check it. I had cloud coverage every hour.
Well, I think it was on the half hour. So you were off by 30 minutes.
Not at all.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. I was in Connecticut Friday, Saturday, Sunday, tied up with graduation activities. So I wasn't going outside to look for the geomagnetic storm, but I saw these posts on Instagram and they were off the hook. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, I was insanely jealous.
Yeah, I think it beats the eclipse, frankly. You see it around here.
Is that one of your bucket lists to kind of go to like, Alaska or Iceland or Greenland to see one of those?
I finished my bucket list decades ago. I'm in the bonus round now, and the bonus round is just, one day at a time, do whatever I want. I've accomplished all my life goals, so I'm ready to die.
Impressive.
I'm gonna hike up the forbidden side of Doubletop and surrender myself to the Gold family. And be sacrificed at the site of the former canister.
Yeah, I screw this up. Didn't go with the intro. Welcome to episode 124, Inside the Line of Catskill Mountains podcast. Today, Tad and I talk about Graham and Doubletop. What happened? What went wrong? What we could have done. So it's definitely a big discussion that I got to admit that was kind of tossed under the table and hasn't been talked about in a long time. So Tad and I are going to go into deep about this, because we kind of both have inside information about this topic, and we both were affected by Graham and Doubletop because they were both unique mountains. So 124, episode 124. I didn't even say what episode we were at last episode. So 1, 2, 3. That sucks.
You're losing it. You're no longer at the top of your game.
So, but yeah, geomagnetic storm.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
It was amazing to see some people taking pictures over the Ashokan Reservoir. My friend Mo, Mo Lemura that works at Camp Catskill, taking some beautiful, stunning photos. And we're both probably an hour and a half away from where he was, and we got nothing. So I don't know. It's and I've tried. There was one time I did try back in 2016. I went as far north as I could up to an airport in Oneonta, away from all the lights, and with my camera with a 15-second exposure and what is it called? ISU. I haven't done this in a long time. ISO. The ISO was set at like 15,000, and
wow.
I got some of the northern lights, but nothing that you could see with the naked eye. So
yeah, I'm just checking this on Google. They say display could be visible once again in New York, except in Oneonta, where it's blacked out for political reasons. So I guess you won't get it again.
Listen, we have something called up here called the bubble. And I think it has to do with the way our mountains are shaped. And every storm goes around us. It's because the mountains are shaped like Franklin, 3 miles to the south, gets massive amounts. Delhi, 8 miles to the south, gets massive amounts. New Berlin, 8 miles to the north, gets massive amounts. Oneonta gets absolutely nothing. So, we had actually the national Weather Channel was up here for a major storm. We had 36 inches predicted, and they were up here. We got 6. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, I also hear you guys don't have good pizza, so that's another story.
We have the greatest pizza around. Challenge me. I did. We're gonna do an episode at Sal's up in Oneonta live, eating slices and drinking cold draft beer. You know what?
Come all, tell your hiking stories, but don't come for the pizza. Come for the beer.
So I got an idea. So June 8th, we have the Catskill Outdoor Expo down at the Catskill Center. It's free, open to visitors and stuff like that. Tad and I are going to be down there. Hopefully Tad will join me. I'll be down there. So I'm going to bring some Sal's pizza down there. It might not be fresh. I could ask for it because he's my friend. I went to school with him, and we're going to do probably a live broadcast. I'm going to do a live recording of people tasting the Sal's Pizzeria.
Well, the true measure of a slice of pizza is how it tastes the next morning, right out of the refrigerator. Okay.
Correct.
It's not hot out of the box. It's not served at the pizzeria, off the platter. It's how it tastes when you grab it out of the fridge the next morning. Maybe a little salt, a little pepper, reheated, but not microwave. Never microwave it, right?
Oh, no, you reheat it through the oven?
You have to. Would you microwave yours? Oh my God.
Yeah, dude.
That's like a crime. I think that's like a class A felony. You could do life for that. I would never admit microwaving pizza.
Especially
never,
a New Yorker.
That's like leaving garbage in the woods. Okay. That's like leaving Adirondack chairs at the top of Slide Mountain. That's just wrong.
That's
you could be arrested. You could be arrested. Even if it's Sal's crappy pizza, you could do time for that. No offense, Sal. I don't know you. I shouldn't be picking on you.
So it's called Sal's Pizzeria because it used to be a guy who owned it named Sal's, my friend.
Really? I never would have figured that out, Stosh. I'm glad you've clarified where the origin, because I thought it was like maybe Sally was short for Sal. Or,
used to own it. All right. So I will bring I guess it's going to be.
You bring Sal's pizza, and I'm going to bring mystery pizza, which hasn't been microwaved. And we're going to have a blind taste testing competition. It's going to be Sal's pizza, the mystery pizza, and the new Cliff Bar pizza flavored bar. Yeah. And we'll see who can pick the best of the 3.
Sold by REI?
No, I think it's sold by Camp Moore down in New Jersey.
So
only in New Jersey are they selling that brand of Cliff Bar.
Yeah. So, thinking we're talking about like food and such like that. So I came upon this article that said through hiking can cause body dysmorphia. So crazy. I wouldn't say crazy article, but I kind of agree with it. I'm not a through hiker, but I can see it in this person's eyes. So, the one funny thing that it's on the Trek. I'll have it on there, our links and show notes. Oh, hold on. Give me a sec. She doesn't even name her. She doesn't even give her name.
Well, I think it's down at the bottom of the article where it
Why
says
would
about
you do
the
that?
author.
That's ridiculous.
We live in a society now where people are more and more open in terms of expressing their feelings, their positions, their points of view.
So her name is Pegleg. That's her trail name. So she did the International Appalachian Trail, New Brunswick, Quebec. She also did the PCT and Bama to Baxter. So she went from Alabama to Baxter, of course, so that it's the Appalachian Trail. East Coast Trail, which was Key West to Newfoundland. So she's gone the distance. And she says basically many thru hikers say that their trail lives has changed forever. Basically the time on the trail has changed their lives forever. And she did her journey back in 2017, and it did change her because in many ways, the way she eats on the trail contributes to the way that it changed her in her normal life. Because on the trail, at any time she would encounter a place that could give her a massive amount of food, a massive amount of calories to explenish that calories you burn off when you're going up these massive peaks, or just these areas of like 20 miles. She would go all out and replenish these 3,000 to 4,000 calories that she burned off during the day. And it really changed her because, when the time she was hiking, you would have to try to kind of balance your calories per calories burned. And you can't really do that because it's tough when you're out in the absolute middle of nowhere and you try to use these, freeze-dried meals, that might have, maybe 2,000 calories per, two people. And then all of a sudden, you're burning off a little bit more than you can expect. But then, at these places with these thru hikes, you could come into a town or something like that, and you can eat 4 or 5 slices of pizza or, 5 or 6 garlic knots. And then all of a sudden you were kind of replenished. And that was also kind of like your, I would say like Guns N' Roses, your appetite for destruction. You would crave that. You would get that. You get sick and tired of all these freeze-dried meals. You get sick and tired of, sodas, snacks, stuff like that. All of a sudden, you would crave these massive meals that you get to have: burgers, fries, stuff like that. So she's saying that basically, once you're out on the trails for these 2,000-mile hikes, that when you get back, changing back to normal eating habits of, eggs in the morning, stuff like that, cannot be matched. And that you're kind of stuck with this crazy appetite that you're going to go out and have bar food all the time, that you want to have something that's going to give you amazing amounts of calories, even though you still aren't burning those calories on the trail like you once were when you did these thru hikes. I read this, and you know what? I can believe that. That's something that I kind of wish, I could burn off 3,000, 4,000 calories a day and then go out and eat some massive amounts of amazing food. So I don't know. What do you think, Tad?
Well, I get it. You're out there. You don't have the luxury of being as conscious about what you eat, making, the best healthy food choices. You're just eating what you have and what you can get your hands on. And I'm sure there's times where you can't get what you want. So you just eat what you can get. And then when you're done hiking all those days and you're around all that food, yeah, you might binge a little bit. So I can understand that. It's sad. And hope she bounces back. Hope she curbs her appetite.
Yeah. And it's, and if we'll include this article in this, but what she's basically saying is that, on the trail, you can lose a considerable amount of weight and try to gain that back when you're in the towns, seeing that amazing food that you have. But, it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. She has a photo in the article of these deep fried deviled eggs that she got along the way. And I must say that I can't imagine being hungry enough to eat a deep fried devil's egg.
Thank you. All right. At least we agree on something. I would take a full freaking pie of pizza over that.
Obviously, that's like a no-brainer.
I don't know. And that was in, I look at that, and that was in Damascus. So that was
early on.
Yeah. That was in the center of the thru hike of your Appalachian Trail hike. So, wow. So just reading some of this, it's just saying, basically, if you do need help with this, reach out to her. I'll post the link and stuff. I highly doubt many people who through hike the Appalachian Trail and the PCT listen to this. Those are, I mean, Mo does, my friend Henry does, but not a lot of people that need help listen to this podcast. So if you do, let me know. So another part that's going on right now is earlier today, later on last night, I got the news that the search for a missing Massachusetts man concludes in New Hampshire. So the body of William Donovan, a hiker who had been missing since April 16th. So that was almost over a month ago, was located by searchers in a dry river today around 10:30 a.m. So this was last night or yesterday. Searchers were directed to his new search area by gear and jacket believed to belong to Donovan. That was found over the weekend in the river by hikers and reported by Fish and Game. This evidence helped focus on their search, and his body was ultimately located approximately 400 feet upstream from the jacket. So the initial search team consisted of conservation officers, drone rescue teams from the Atterskogin Valley Search and Rescue, the New England Canine Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team. That was the initial area, but the body was located just 2.5 miles off of Route 302, and the searchers worked hours to extricate the body from beneath the large boulder. So once again, this is a very kind of insane moment of where you picture this person's body being beneath the large boulder and they're trying to pry it out. But at the time, freezing cold water temperatures and the lack of tools to remove the body from the area, they needed definitely additional resources. So a lot of people came in together, Twin Mountain Fire Department, the Atterskogin Valley Search and Rescue Team, the Pemigewasset Search and Rescue Team, and the Mountain Rescue Services all responded to assist this. And volunteers hike in the extra tools for over 2.5 miles and assisted in carrying the body back out. Sorry, once again. Shit. Teams arrived at Route 302 with the body at 6:40 p.m. So it is not known what brought Donovan to the dry river wilderness, and it is unknown how he entered the water, but it appears he was likely somehow forced off the ridge, likely due to weather between Mount Monroe and Mount Howard during this hike, and ended up in the very difficult, insane terrain of the dry river wilderness. So they're doing an autopsy, and just another crazy incident in the White Mountain National Forest that we see happen at this time of year. Just
looks like the guy went out solo. He doesn't say what, if any, personal messaging or satellite device, if any, he had, but apparently if he had one, he didn't have the opportunity to activate it, and was found in a stream beneath a large boulder.
And Tad, from hiking with Danny and hiking, doing bushwhacks and stuff up drainages, it can turn into a disaster pretty fast with.
Oh yeah. I don't think in the Catskills we would be hiking in a stream that would have the water velocity that this person encountered, because it's, typically it's short-lived in the Catskills and you're not hiking in those conditions. But I've been up, when I was much younger, I've been up in the Adirondacks when you would run into that, and those streams would be raging and dangerous.
Yep. And the further up, the smaller it would get, the kind of more turrent you would get. And it would, any little step in there, you would think, it's not that bad. And then all of a sudden, boom, it would sweep you up. And
you never know.
Exactly. And I it's very, at these times, you kind of wonder what happened. What was he thinking? What did he run into? What problems, but this has been a good old a month that they've been searching for him. And, being a search and rescue volunteer, we first start off with the trails, and you scour the trails. You try to see what you can't find anything, come back down. You kind of scour the trails once again and look for kind of like last point seen, last point known. And then it becomes a grid search. And grid searches are not easy, especially with, off trail, especially within the White Mountains, because all of a sudden there are dense forests and you got to be so close to find something.
Yeah. Well, according to the article, it sounds like folks hiking the river over the weekend found his jacket, alerted Fish and Game, which is their ranger service, and the fellow's body was found about 400 feet upstream from this jacket. So the jacket presumably had washed downstream, found by some hikers, called it in, and that narrowed down the search area.
It's a very difficult process, and once again, thank you to the volunteer search and rescue teams up there. Thank you to the fishing game that dedicated a month of this to help find the body. And it's a very difficult time. And, I could admit the White Mountains for the past couple of years have been taking a beating with these search and rescue. And, I try to wonder, what's going through these people's minds when they want to pursue these mountains in these difficult situations. And, I don't try to do this. I don't want to do this because I don't want that situation of where I can't hike the mountains again.
Yeah. Well, I think you've mentioned before how you like extreme winter conditions for hiking. So
wind, it's like wind.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you're drawn into it for the wind, and the wind blows in the storm, and the next thing you know, it's whiteout conditions, and you're getting cold, getting disorientated. Sounds like a search and rescue.
It's about to
that's
happen.
It. People want adventure. People are looking, for something to take the ordinary out of their everyday experience and make it extraordinary. And it's one of the reasons they're drawn to the woods.
Exactly. And Tad, this is something I wanted to bring up that wasn't on the agenda. So I recently saw an Instagram post from a person who was up at the Mount Everest base camp, and she was taking like a video of her area and showing how amazing it is. And I was absolutely disgusted by what was up there. Tents everywhere, deflated tents, garbage everywhere. And it was just absolutely disgusting. And this article, it's funny, I was thinking about that. Sorry. Because of course the article's gone. Wow, of course. I opened it up in freaking the browser. So just the article I read was, will there be drama on Mount Everest this year? There definitely will. But we all know that Mount Everest is an absolute crazy kind of place with its adventurers want to go up there. People want to go up there just to summit the mountain, just to check it off of their list and stuff like that. Hundreds, thousands of people do it per year. It's absolutely insane. And this one time, I came across a video of someone on Instagram just showing, like, doing a kind of like a panorama 360 of the area. And then all you see is on the ground, just these kind of deflated tents sitting there, and then tents up, and then deflated tents, and then tents up, and then deflated tents. It almost looked like, these balloons have floated in the area and deflated. And it's very disturbing. And it's absolutely disturbing to talk about this, to read about this, to see what people feel about this, that they just want to do it just to cross it off their list. They have no absolute feeling of what it is about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stosh is slowly sliding into some type of respiratory distress. I think his wife is calling 911.
Not at all.
It looks like somebody's intubating him. He's on the floor. Some search and rescue folks have stormed into the studio where he was recording. Stosh waves them away as he sips what I think is a rum and coke, and he's back to the microphone. Like
Hell
that.
yeah, 100%. So yeah. So what do you? I mean, do you think this stuff on Everest is ever going to die down?
Oh, I no. I mean, it's going to get more and more used. People are going to keep pushing the envelope. There's going to be more people there. They're going to come with more ways to convey people there. Hopefully, there's some level of control implemented to minimize the trash, to minimize the disturbances. But the attraction is just going to keep drawing people in, and operators are going to try to profit off of it. Maybe some of them will be more scrupulous than others, and try to police and preserve the area more. But it's a shame. I hiked with a guy a few years back who hiked into base camp. I think he said it was an 8 or 9 day hike in, and he just described it as a fantastic experience. He got to base camp. He hiked one or two of the smaller mountains around Everest, but not Everest itself. And he described it as, being a really worthwhile and enjoyable experience. It was something I would enjoy doing, maybe with one of my daughters or somebody who appreciates pizza other than Sal's Pizza, of course. But
outrageous.
Yeah.
Why are you going to bring that up? Stop bringing that up.
All right. I'm going to scratch it. I'm scratching right off the list here. Sal's Pizza. There.
You'll get your taste.
I'm done beating up on Sal, except for on June 8th when we have the pizza shoot-off.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah. Once again, you just kind of, you're curious about what's going to happen on Everest. There's a whole different, like policing policy, stuff like that. Are they going to take over what it is, or are they just going to keep taking on the cash flow and realizing that this is a money grab kind of situation? So once again, I'll have to post the link that I saw, because it was very disturbing. It just sucks. It looks like a bunch of Mylar balloons are all over the place, and they're never going to be cleaned up on a freaking glacier.
Yeah, I think the last time I was out hiking, which was decades ago, it seems, we found 2 or 3 Mylar balloons that day.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Just in the Catskills.
Unbelievable. Just in the Catskills. So it's crazy. So thank you for the small talk, Tad. Shooting the shit.
I'm trying. I'm shooting the shit, and you're shooting the germs over there.
Shooting the germs out of here. So thank you to the monthly supporters: Darren, Vicky, John, Betsy, Denise, Vanessa, Joseph, Jim, Michael, David, Chris, and Vanessa. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. I'm glad you guys believe in the show and you're supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Also, check out Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography specializes in adventure elopement and adventure couple photography in the Catskills, Adirondack, and the White Mountains. She is an officiant for getting married and a licensed guide, but she is also a story maker. Molly won't just give you photos, she gives you memories that will last forever. Do not hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. So also, have you ever wanted to learn about more hiking or backpacking, or even just brush up on some of your old skills in the backcountry? Check out Trailbound Project, a hiking and backpacking school. Scott and Joe from the New Jersey Search and Rescue Team have amazing backgrounds in wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder, and the Mountain Rescue Association, and they are here for you to learn old and new skills of hiking and backpacking. They teach anything from map and compass and first aid and many other skills that you could help you and others while on the trail. Check them out on our social media platforms. So, coffees, tag, you know what? Tad, I'm going to let you go with this one on this one.
All right. I'm stepping up. This is my big time.
Definitely.
So, as we said before, tag the podcast when you post one of your hikes on Instagram or elsewhere on social media platforms, and we'll chat about it on the show and maybe invite you on to talk about hiking and other things outdoors.
Damn straight. And you know what? I love talking about other people's hikes because, who knows what they've done? Danny and Mischievous, Mighty Mischievous, Danny might have done something crazy. And then you got that guy, Brian Hikes All Day, who wants to find dead bodies in the Catskills. So you never know. So Brian Hikes All Day. Also, So Tad, looks like you're having a good old coffee from your
Yeah.
Yeti.
Yeah, same old, same old.
You know, I've been asked, how the hell can you drink caffeine this late in the day?
Because at my age, drugs and chemicals have absolutely no effect on my body. Nothing whatsoever. I'm like a petrified human, and I pour whatever fluid it is, and it does nothing for me.
What about like CBD? Have you ever thought about doing like the not even
CBD, DCB, ABC, XYZ? I do it all. Nothing works on me.
Not even like weed or something like that? Like that won't help you out?
I don't know what you mean by weed. I don't know what I whack the weeds in the lawn. I have a weed eater, and I spray the weed and feed on the yard.
Outrageous.
Other activities with weed I'm not familiar with
Don't be
at this time.
talking about that taking away the pollinator stuff, man. I thought you were about that. You were all about the supporting the bees and stuff.
Yeah, I do. I have a whole area of the yard that I don't treat. I don't do anything to, but around the house, around the pool, I like that country club look. You know, after a long day of hiking in the Catskills, bushwhacking, dealing with nettles, prickers, beach whips, you name it. I like to come home, get out of my Jeep. I go for that spot in the yard. I just lie down. I roll around in the grass. I feel like a civilized human all over again.
Hey, understandable. I got that backyard that's like that too. We're converting the front yard into a whole full, like, how do you say?
Yeah, you want to be that neighbor that everyone talks about. It's just going to be in a state of nature, right? You're going to have critters out there. Is that it?
I'm sorry to say they're going to fucking hate it.
Yeah. You're going to drive down land values in the neighborhood. I heard you're going to put like a mosh pit out front. Is that one of the things you're doing?
100%. They hear that at 5:00 in the morning when I go to work. They hear my double bass.
Butts and nuts. That's what they're going to call you.
Exactly.
Over there at Butts and Nuts house.
Yeah. So exactly. So once again, I had good old rum and Coke. As always, I had very limited time to get here. So, as I said to you, the freaking Zoom link an hour before the show. Absolutely ridiculous. So, previous hikes. Do you have anything for us, Ted?
No, I haven't. I told you last week I didn't hike. Didn't hike this weekend. I was out in Connecticut for my daughter's graduation. It was a fun family event-filled weekend, and I will be out hopefully this Saturday doing a hike that I've probably put off now for at least 6 weeks, it seems. But if I do it, stay tuned. It's not necessarily that it's going to be a long hike, but it's going to be a fun hike.
So can you give us any kind of like some secrets?
No, because I don't want to run into anybody on the hike. I want to, I'm going to go through some of Mike Kudish's old growth areas. I'm going to hit hopefully an old trail and knock off some of the 100 highests along the way.
Nice.
Just kind of something a little avant-garde. I'm going to have to start off with I think it's like a 12-mile bicycle hustle down 23A. That's a clue, if you will. You can guess all you want. I'm not going to admit anything.
23A at 12 mile. Jesus.
Yeah.
There and back?
Well, down to the start point. But, you have to remember there's, when the bike ride is kind of like a U-shaped thing. So the hike is more of, I'm not going to say the hike is a total straight line, but I'm going to say the interesting part of the hike is definitely going to be the climb up to the ridge. It looks like I'm going to be going through either a spruce or hemlock forest, up a drainage, then hitting some ledges, cliff action, whatever.
Wow.
Up over a few, little knobs, and then into some familiar territory for all of our Catskill hiking friends. Then I'm going to bang a left and head down to the Jeep along what I assume is an old logging road that shows up on the map.
I am very curious. It's a big question mark in my head right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, if you have Saturday off, tag along. I'll bring you along. I'll slow down the pace. I'll slow it down to 2.8 miles an hour for you. I'll back it off.
Should I show you how fast I was doing that one drive across? That was pretty quick.
Oh yeah. What was your 2.6?
It was like 2.6.
Yeah. That's pretty good for a trail hike.
I gotta admit, I gotta admit, that's pretty good compared to other people.
I'll take on.
And wait a minute. That was talking with a guy that was on the trail. So I was talking with him, and then I talked with him, and I checked out ledges.
With Mike Kudish, you were doing like 2.6 with Mike Kudish by your side.
God,
you picked him up at the house. He smoked you, right?
He did.
He was carrying all of his bog equipment up, and you just got like your extra light pack and a rum and coke, and Iron Mike has just got the hammer down.
God, wouldn't that be the dream right there, right? Well, amazing.
Hey,
so
maybe we'll see him on June 8th.
I hope so. I hope he recognizes me. I've been with him several times, but who knows? So previously, I had the intentions today to go up to Gilboa and hike around the upper reservoir. Had the intentions, but I had somebody that had to divert me from my goal, I would say. So instead of going up to Gilboa, we went to Cooperstown, and I did some disc golfing up in the woods at Omegang. So it was really, if you ever like, disc golfing is actually, I gotta admit, very fun and very orientated with kind of hiking, because most of these disc golf places are for free, are built by the state, and they're in state forest. So it's really crazy. I can't believe that there's only one place that you have to pay for disc golfing in New York State, and that's freaking right down the street from me at a Stainer.
Well, if you want another place, come on over to my house with your Frisbee, and I'll take $20 for you to throw your Frisbee around in my yard anytime you want. I'll serve you some hot pizza out of the microwave and a rum and coke for $20. I'll do that for you.
Do you have disc golf like baskets and stuff, or no?
No.
Okay. No.
I'll put them up there. I'll do it for you. I want to do an interesting activity or something on the property. I got a little land here, something down by the river.
You should.
Maybe that's it. Maybe disc golf is the way to go.
People love it. It's a phenomenal sport. Somewhat, you have to kind of get some decent disc into it. It's not just Frisbee, because those Frisbees will fly right back to you. So it's fun. And you go up in Omegang, we have kind of like a flat area, and then it goes up in the woods, curves back down into the flat area, and the open area.
You have your own disc?
Yep.
You have a set of discs, or is it just one disc?
So there's a set of discs. There's a driver, a mid-range, and a putter, and I have no clue what's the difference between all those.
Yeah. So do you know when to use which one, or you just pick one at random and you're using the putter when you really need the long range one, and you have no clue? Yeah.
The putter is of course closer, and then the long range, the distance. But I throw the distance, and it just floats in the air, and then it just stops down. It's really odd. I got to learn the techniques of their stuff.
It sounds like you need to watch some YouTube videos on how to be a disc golf pro.
Some insane YouTube videos of people throwing 300 foot freaking aces. As my buddy Alex would call them, the ace of chains instead of the ace of spades by Motorhead. The ace of chains.
Alex has got a good sense of humor. So the way I see this tilting is there's 1,000 hiking podcasts. So I'm going to take up disc golf. You're into disc golf, and we're going to start a disc golf podcast. It's going to be the first one, and we're going to be social media disc golf influencers. We're going to get sponsorships from the U.S. Disc Golf Corporation. And we're going to be on ESPN, you name it.
They got that going. So
it's going to be great.
All right. Let's move on.
Yeah. So it's about time.
Yeah. Right. Too much disc golf crap. So volunteer 3,500 Club Trailhead Stewards have their calendar up for the summer, so check them out. Definitely go for the Trail at Stewards. It's a fun time. I plan on doing it sometime soon. So Catskill Trail Crew, Monday, May 20th and Tuesday, May 21st. They're at Little Pond. Not a bad hike at all. You can go up and do some amazing trail work, help out for 2 days. I believe that's Memorial Day and then day after Memorial Day. June 8th and June 9th, Saturday and Sunday. They're at the Mongaw Pond area. Awesome little area that needs help from blowdown and some certain little drainages areas. So definitely check out Catskill Trail Crew and the 3500 Club. Also check out Catskill Mountain Club. They are doing stuff as well. Catskill Visitor Center are doing volunteer operations. Jolly Rovers Trail Crew, definitely check them out. They're all links in the show notes. Bradley Mountain Flower Tower is doing some show notes. Stickers, you need stickers, let me know. Or stop at Camp Catskill. You can get some there. Or stop June 8th at the Catskill Center where we're going to be at. So, weather forecast for this weekend. So, since we're talking about Grand Mountain, I decided to do the weather forecast for Grand Mountain for this weekend. So,
not that anybody can go there though.
I know, right? It's very similar to Balsam Lake and Bigoted, I guess. So Friday looks like we're going to be in the mid to high 50s. Beautiful weather, some clouds, maybe a little light rain later on in the day, but when usually everybody's out. So mid to high 50s, wind around 10. So bring your head nets. There's definitely going to be bugs all over the freaking place. So Saturday, we got some beautiful weather coming on. A little bit of light rain in the afternoon, but nothing too bad. Low 50s to high 50s, wind around 10 to 15 miles an hour. Sunday looks like it's a little bit kind of dustier with some cloudy, some light rain, and a little bit more cloudiness. A little bit lower, 48 degrees to 46 degrees, 46 to 48, with a wind chill of probably around 43. So once again, prepare for rain. At least a little bit, because it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad out there for you guys to smash some peaks or something like that. We don't call it crush some peaks, because that's what Slasher called it. We call it smash some peaks.
Smash down.
That's ridiculous. And we'll done in a second. So, last set of sponsors. So, is it time for some new gear hiking the Catskills? Say no more. Camp Catskill in Tannersville has all your hiking needs. Footwear, socks, moisture wicking shirts, freeze-dried meals, Catskill merchandise, and more. They have all the essentials for your hiking needs. Located in Tannersville and online. Check out Camp Catskill. Also, if you want free stickers, stop here. Oh, also, if you're ready to hit the trails, make sure you take the scenic route. Scenic Route Guiding are here to help you with your goals, big or small. Anything from like Lone or Marcy or Slider the Stewards. Check out Scenic Route Guiding and Gear Rentals on Facebook and Instagram for more information. Also, if you mention the podcast, you can get 10% off. Use the code Mountain Lion. So check out Another Summit, a nonprofit program that leads outdoor adventures and activities for veterans and first responders for free. Activities like walking or hiking, or even backpacking or paddling trips. Check out anothersummit.org for more information and dates for future events. So, let's get on to the topic of the night.
Let's go.
Graham and Doubletop. What happened? So, of course, ever since basically I started this podcast, this has been a big discussion. And to be honest, I've never pursued this topic of Graham and Doubletop. What happened? What could have been done? What could have been prevented? Back and forth.
So the way you say that, why don't you just tell us, why didn't you pursue it before? Why didn't you bring up this topic on the podcast before tonight?
Because I don't think, with someone like you, I don't think I had anybody as knowledgeable as you to talk about it with, or to pursue it into this depth. Because I'm willing to spill a lot of stuff.
Jesus, I hope I don't disappoint you.
No, I don't think you will, because sure. It was a big topic.
Sure.
This happened. Graham and Doubletop, where we'll talk about it in a little bit, was closed in 2020. Was it 2020 or 2021?
2021.
So 2021, it was closed to the public. And, I see that as a weird thing, as at that time, I was second vice president of the 3,500 Club. So there's a lot of information to be thrown about that time and, what happened, what could have been prevented, what could have been done to keep these mountains open. So let's pause all that right now. Let's go into a background of Graham and Doubletop. So Graham and Doubletop were owned by the Goulds. Now, the Goulds are a very rich and wealthy family located from New York City. And Chad will go in a little bit of this a little bit later on, but as most other peaks with the Millbrook Range and the Millbrook Ridge area, there was very little human impact on Graham for the most of recorded history. Definitely changed dramatically after the construction of the Turner Hollow Road in the late 19th century that connected Seeger with the end of the Beaver Kill Road. Now that also opened Tannery's area and all of the areas. Of course, Arkville, we got the Beaver Kill area that led down into that stretch. And there was also one of the big practices down in that area was fishing. A Beaver Kill area was trout fishing. Anglers could reach private fishing area clubs on the Beaver Kill headwaters from the Arkville station, all from the Delaware and Ulster Railroad. Around 1890, George Gould built the Furlough Lodge tract, which included most of the mountain of Graham, and his father was a great enjoyer of fishing, trout fishing at the lake and along the streams as well. So, Tad, big question. Who was George Gould?
Okay, so George Gould was the eldest son of Jay Gould. Jay was known as one of America's most infamous robber barons, who died in 1892 with a fortune of $84 million and had a reputation as one of the most despised men in America. And that reputation emanates out of the means and methods that Jay used to acquire that wealth. Now, this is surprising because Jay grew up in the Catskills near Roxbury, no different than John Burroughs. And Jay initially took up the trade of surveying and making a noon mark on the sides of houses, which would allow the occupants of the house to accurately keep time. I read that Jay would earn $1 for marking that spot on the side of your house, typically the southern side of the house, that would mark where the sun passed over at high noon, so you could keep track of time, set your clocks or your watches, which were back then notoriously inaccurate.
Yeah.
Jay got into railroads in or around 1857 when he purchased stock in the Rutland and Washington Railroad and took control of the company. He had a reputation as a lying, corrupt, and ruthless robber baron engaged in fraudulent investment schemes, selling, and listen closely, selling fake stock certificates in various railroads and other companies. And he would make speculative investments in railroads and in gold. So Jay, not a very cool person. By age 29, Jay was a millionaire, and when he died, as I said before, in 1892, he had a reputed net worth of $84 million, which I looked up, and in today's numbers, that's worth about $2.9 billion. His eldest son was George. George was the fellow, as Stosh noted, in 1892, I guess 2 years before Dad died, George bought the Furlough Lodge, and over time accumulated the acreage that became the Gould family holdings in the Graham and Doubletop area. But interesting or of note is that George Gould, who was then in charge of his father's fortune, within a few years of his father's death, lost about 40% of the family fortune. Nonetheless, he buys the lodge, accumulates the property around Graham and Doubletop, and that property remains owned by the Gould family to this very day.
And, as most of us know with this area, is that they never really gave up that area. It's one of the only places, kind of like on the Catskill 3,500 peaks and the highest peaks. Very few, even in the 100 highest peaks, are privately owned, let alone 2 of the 3,500 peaks in this area. So the Goulds had definitely a lot of pull on the Catskill area because of the railroad, their involvement in the railroad and such like that. I could remember reading a story about John Burroughs was down in New York City, and he was walking, I believe, on Wall Street or some part of New York City. And he walked, and him and Jay were friends. They were friends in high school. They went to high school together. They grew up together. But he walked past Jay when they were down in the New York City area, and Jay had no clue who he was. Either that or what John Burroughs thought that John wasn't good enough for him, and he just walked right past him.
Snubbed him.
Yep. And, that's what I remember reading. I forgot what book I read that in, but it was just one of those times of where, the rich are over here. And, I wouldn't say John Burroughs was poor. John Burroughs was rich in his life and stuff, but he wasn't the same as someone who lived in NYC at the time.
Yeah. Well, the Burroughs family goes on to make its own fortune in computers.
What?
And yeah, they came up with an adding machine, a Burroughs adding machine. I forget which member of the family, but it was, quite a big deal back then. Yeah. And they made, millions with the office. It was, a mechanical machine, but it was an automated machine.
Oh, wow.
That, made certain office tasks easier. I think one of them was like a check printing machine that they came up with, which, 100 and some years ago, writing out a check in a secure way was a pretty big deal. So the Burroughs family made, buckets of money doing that. But one of the things when you have some free time, Google Jay Gould, and you're going to read all of these stories about how he was, frankly, a con man, printing up fake stock certificates, and he and a couple of his pals engaged in what would seem to be outrageous business practices to gain control of railroad companies, and he amassed this fortune. And it's through his conduct that the family acquired Graham and Doubletop, and we now live with it today. So, Stosh, why don't you continue with the story?
So, Tad, do you know, was he ever caught in trial or something like that?
No, I don't think he was ever charged. It was, some of the things he did were apparently widely known at the time. And, he was just not considered to be a trustworthy fellow. But back then, there was a lack of regulation, a lack of control. Disseminating information was difficult. And so he was able to manipulate stock prices, manipulate the price of gold, acquire controlling interests in companies, as a corporate raider, and take them over. And then, of course, back then, if you controlled a railroad, you controlled the ability of farmers to get their products to market. You controlled the ability of people to get from a bigger metropolitan area to the rural countryside, or, as we learned a couple weeks ago, to resort areas. So you had a lot of influence and control, and you could profit off of that, take advantage of people. So here's a fellow who, by all accounts, had little to no scruples and profited greatly by it. That money largely remains in the hands of the family to this very day, and they continue. When you look at George Gould and the properties he held, he owned a lot of interesting properties around the East Coast, and most of them, all of them, with the exception of the Furlough Lodge, have been sold off. But they kept Graham and Doubletop along with the lodge. You can, through Google Earth or something like that, you can zoom in and see this lodge property that was, added onto and enlarged over time. It's on a lake up there that the family has retreats. I remember in the old days when you would call, I think the fellow's name was Bill Scholl, the caretaker.
Yep.
Right.
Bill.
You'd call Bill to get permission to go on the property. And, during hunting season, you'd have to be pretty particular in terms of telling them where you were going, because whether it was Gould family members themselves or their friends would be up there hunting, but they were never up hunting, as far as I knew, in the saddle between Graham and Doubletop.
Yeah. It's, once again, your last name back in these days had a big importance on what you could do and what you owned and stuff like that. The Goulds were big, and they still somewhat are, I would say, in the Catskills region. But back in the days, back in the early 1900s or late 1800s, were absolutely enormous with their last name.
Yeah. So we can compare the Gould family and their involvement, Jay Gould's involvement in the railroad industry and his accumulation of wealth through those enterprises, with the Harriman family. And what was his, Alverill Harriman acquired controlling interests in railroad companies, made lots and lots of money. Many of you don't know, as you drive up the New York State Thruway from Rockland County, Suffern, north to Harriman, New York, the reason that stretch is undeveloped through there is because it's owned by the Harriman family, has restrictive covenants on it by the Harriman family that prevents it from development. So when you go through that view shed that's undeveloped before you get to Woodbury Commons, which is an outlet center that's overly developed, that whole area is undeveloped for the very reason that the Harriman family protected it with restrictive covenants. And then, of course, the Harriman family gave away all of the land that became Harriman State Park, which, in sharp contrast to the Gould family that did what, Stosh? Told us we can't hike on their land. Yeah. Just shout it out when you know the answer. It's that easy, right? What did the Gould family do?
They cut us off. They restricted us.
Yes. Butts to nuts.
Yes. That has nothing to do with it. Come on. So, we're talking about early 19th century, 1800s. We have railroads going up to Arkville. We got railroads going, up to maybe Roxbury, Kingston area, going down to Shandaken, through up to Oneonta, stuff like that. So there was one big creation in between Graham and Doubletop that was called the Turner Hollow Road, that was made in the upper slopes of Graham, and that went over to the Seeger area. Now, do you call it Seeger or Sager?
I call it Seeger.
Okay. Because I've heard people call it Sager.
You have to call Jim Booten or Mike Kudish for the correct pronunciation.
And you call him Jim Booten, not Boughton?
Booten.
Okay. So everybody knows he's the camp.
It's that time of night we can mispronounce things.
Yeah. So some of us that have hiked the mountains knows that their impact on the mountain is definitely still visible to elevations well above 3,000 feet. So if you've hiked Graham, you basically know that whole area was logged. It is a very unique area, one of the most unique, I would say, in the Catskills. And of course, I think Dr. Kudish has also agreed with me. It is one of the most unique areas in the Catskills, just because the trees are basically somewhat of on Windham High Peak. They are only so amount high, and they can only grow so amount high because it's been harvested. And it's also because of the weather forecast of today.
Yeah. So when you say they're like Windham, I think the trees on top of Graham are more like what you find on the western part of the Bear Pen Summit.
Western, sorry. So facing towards Savai.
No. opposite from Vly.
So-
You've come up through past the hunting
Oh,
shack.
yes.
Yeah. So, and
Okay.
after you go through the first ski slope area and you continue to hike down towards the second, and then that western viewpoint,
Yes.
that most reminds me of the pygmy forest.
Yeah.
That's on top of Graham. And if you ever have the opportunity to talk to Mike Kudish about unique mountaintop forests in the Catskills, ask him about Graham, because he'll carry on about it. To him, it's a very special place, a very unique place. And most people who hiked to Graham would come up the Jeep Trail, the old relay station, and hang out at that Jeep Trail, turn around and go back down. Most of the folks didn't go past that relay station or didn't hike up Graham from the south, from the east, hike up it from Doubletop. But if you came up from the side of Graham opposite of that relay tower, and then you would hike through that pygmy forest, and it was very unique. I remember the first time I hiked it, I was just amazed at how short, how sturdy, how burly these trees were. And again, it's unlike anything that you really find elsewhere in the Catskills.
Yeah, I agree. To piggyback on that, Graham was one of the mountains that took the most beating of weather, I would say, of any mountains in the Catskills. A lot of people say, Bear Pen caught a lot of stuff, but it didn't take the winds that Graham would take. Graham, I've never been up Graham to where I haven't probably had sustained winds of less than 15 to 20 miles per hour. And, just imagine that stuff in the winter, pounding on with the ice and stuff. Graham was kind of like the first mountain to get that weather and to show you.
Well, I think you might know better than I, but that, and you have it in the notes, is I think one of the reasons that helicopter went down was in the winter time during a snowstorm on Graham.
Yeah. And, if anybody's been up there, and it was a relay station that was once built in the 1960s, 1 acre clearing, small little area, relay station, and Tad might be old enough to understand what a relay station is. Is that for radio or something like that? What is that?
Oh, no, it was for TV. And so back in the day, and I'm not conversant in the science, but the transmission of a TV signal would bounce off the upper atmosphere. And the problem is that it would go up and then come down, but it wouldn't go back up again. So it had a limited range. And so what would be done is you would build these relay stations as another broadcast point that would then project the TV signal up, and then it would come back down again. So it was a way of relaying the TV signal further out. And back in the 50s, the 60s, early 70s, before cable TV became popular, getting a TV signal to your house in remote areas was a difficult thing. And I knew I grew up in a little valley in southwestern New York where literally in the summer, we only had 2 TV channels. That's all. In the winter, when the atmosphere was lower, we would get the third signal would come in. But most of the time we just had the 2. And then eventually my dad got a satellite. We had our own satellite in the backyard, and then we had a whole bunch of channels. But my parents never had out at their farmhouse, they never had cable.
Wow. And the thing about that, you kind of wonder where the relay stations were located for that to be placed on Graham. It wasn't there. It wasn't there for long. It said it was there for 6 years, 63 to 69. And a technician and a pilot were on the summit for 24 hours after a helicopter crashed there for a maintenance trip during a heavy snowstorm in 1963. Once again, 1960s, we had crashes all over the place, plane crashes, and now a helicopter class. Luckily, once again, Joe Ferry, my friend Joe, and I looked this up. All the plane crash or all the helicopter crash was escorted off the mountain during that after that snowstorm through that one maintained road that was located between Millbrook Ridge Balsam Lake Fire Tower and to Graham. So once again, you have the Balsam Lake Fire Tower that was occupied during those times for fires. And then you have Graham Mountain was a relay station. So both had roads going up to it. Now, I'm not sure when it was closed, but they before the official names of Doubletop and Graham, they were named the Schoolhouse Mountains. So East and West Schoolhouse Mountains. If anybody's been up to the Balsam Lake area, they would see that little house in between the divergent, like the crossway to lead to the end of Seeger and then going down to Arkville. That was once a schoolhouse, just to let you know. And that's why I called it East and West Schoolhouse Mountains. So let's go on to Doubletop. Actually, damn, I didn't say how high Graham was. So Graham was actually, hold on.
Yeah, so Graham was 3,852 feet, and Doubletop was 3,871, or is.
Okay.
I mean, they're still there. They're just not on your hiking radar, so to speak.
So Doubletop was the sixth highest peak in the Catskills, and considered two peaks. Once there's a western and an eastern part. Second of two peaks, luckily, is on state land, and you can approach it from many ways. Usually from the south is most used, but every place is a bushwhack. It's all bushwhack. There are no formal trails. And Graham is seventh highest peak in the Catskills. It's 6 feet shorter than Doubletop. A little bit steeper, though. All on private property once again. There's absolutely no way you can approach Graham to get on the peak, to summit that peak. No second summit. And that was the case up until 2021. Well, that wasn't the case up until 2021. So let's chat about that, Tad. Before 2021, you had to always call and ask for permission to hike both of the mountains. Now, you said, what was his name? Bill?
Yeah, Bill Scholl. I seem to remember his last name was Bill Scholl, but I somewhat became a friend of his, or just friendly with him, calling him up all the time to go out there and hike. I would chat a little bit with him on the phone. He seemed to be a somewhat elderly fellow. He would get back to me. You'd call him, you'd leave a message later that day or the next day. He'd get back to you, chit chat a little bit, and never say no to you. You always got permission to go there. And like I said earlier, sometimes, when I would tell Bill that this is where I would be on the property, we'd have more of a detailed discussion during hunting season about where I'd be going, because there would be people up there hunting. In fact, I have to say, of the places I've hiked in the Catskills, I've run into the most hunters between Big Indian and Doubletop than I've run into anywhere else up
Interesting.
there. Yeah, and I remember one time I ran into this fellow hunting up there, and the first thing that was striking about him is he looked like he was right out of the pages of like the L.L. Bean or Eddie Bauer catalog. I mean, he had all of this real poshy, swanky hunting clothes on, and this rifle that looked like, it cost thousands of dollars. And we had a long chat. Long for a hiker and a hunter was probably like 15 minutes. And we took a deep dive into some of the features around Graham and on the way over from Big Indian to Doubletop. Rock features, roads. He described to me the road network that's up there. But it was very interesting how well he knew the terrain. Yeah. And also, I mean, again, here's this guy. You're pretty far out when you're up there for a hunter, but apparently he had a walkie-talkie, and if he shot something, he had a couple guys that were, within a half a mile or so that would come over and help him haul back his kill.
Nice. That was, when you ask permission to hike, that was one of the things they always ask you. Are you hunting? Do you know about the hunters? It is hunting season. And of course, Bill, I was just looking for Bill on my phone to be like, I probably I don't have him on my phone, but I used to call him all the time. But Bill was a cool dude. He'd always basically let you go up if you knew what you were doing, if you'd just say like, you know.
Yeah. No, I never got a no, even from the new fellow who would kind of quiz you more. And one of the things you haven't mentioned, but I remember is in 2020 when COVID hit, the initial policy of the Gould family was we're going to let hikers continue to hike our property, but you have to live in Ulster County. If you don't live in Ulster County, then we're going to tell you, no, we don't want you on our property. So fortunately, I live in Ulster County, and the new fellow would give me permission, but he would give me a hard time when I would tell him that I was coming in from Big Indian, or I was bushwhacking up from this direction and heading over to, Graham through the call. He'd have a hard time understanding what I was doing, why somebody would want to do that. But eventually I'd get him to yes, and I'd be able to carry on with the hike.
Yeah. So, I mean, 99% of the time, you would get permission. I don't think I've ever heard of somebody not getting permission to go hike one of these mountains. And of course, as the time went on during the pandemic, it got a pretty crazy, I got to admit. But, going hiking, I have hiked Doubletop and Graham from the popular areas, of course. So you go from Millbrook Ridge up through Balsam Lake, and you can hike over from there, and you can hike the old carriage road that went up to the relay station, or you can hike Doubletop, which there must have been a road going all the way up to Doubletop because it basically leads up to the ledges. So there must have been an old logging road. And I always found those places to actually be well maintained.
Yeah. That one hunter I spoke of described to me how there is a main road that literally circles around Doubletop.
No way.
Three circles around it going up. Doesn't go to the top of Doubletop, of course, but goes, up as high as, where the hardwoods sort of end. And I remember running into the traces of that road when I would explore over there.
Yeah. So that I'm trying to figure out of what certain height that was, but I could feel where those ledges hit and where those conifers kind of thing, but I never explored around the other side. And
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, the plane wreck is kind of right at that elevation on the eastern side where the hardwoods transition into the softwoods.
And that's so far up in there, man. That's really far up in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that road, definitely, I've taken that road up into the vicinity of that plane wreck many times. Yeah. And I've come over from Big Indian to Doubletop, and then counterclockwise around just that whole perimeter around it, and walked around the whole thing. And was fascinating to do that. Yeah.
So, and I got to admit, we'll talk once again a little bit later about our experiences on there. So, during the pandemic time, traffic in the Catskills, not alone just Graham and Doubletop, got out of control. Every bushwhack, you would see people on. Every just hike, you would see people that wouldn't be shouldn't be on those hikes would be on those hikes for some reason, just to get out. And then all of a sudden, word on the street that the Goulds were going to close down the mountains due to overuse. And then all of a sudden, we would see signs here and there that you must call for permission. I mean, this wasn't, I don't think that was before. That was kind of like word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, I think, it was kind of like one of these perfect storm situations where Bill Scholl retires. You get, and who knows when the last time Bill was at the top of Doubletop, right? Could have been 10 years that he hadn't gone up there. He had no reason to go up there. And so you get this new caretaker who's all gung-ho to impress his employer. So they go around, they start putting up new posted signs. And then there was a time in the late summer of 2020, when you would hike out of Sager, that there was like all of this, it was kind of like that emergency tape or that nylon tape.
Remember that?
Yeah, that they would have it where the herd path went up Doubletop. And then there was a note on there about calling first. And part of it was, you need to leave your phone number. Whoever made the phone call to get permission would have to sign in using their phone number into the book so they could verify that you called in. So they through the new caretaker, they started to become more vigilant. And then this is also at the same time that you had more people coming up to the Catskills wanting to finish their list. And so they're going up Doubletop, and they're apparently not calling in, and they're getting up there. And presumably at first, it wasn't easy to find the canister. So there was, I don't know if you remember, but there was multiple, not as bad as we used to see on Friday, but going up Doubletop, I remember if you went up the traditional herd path, there was kind of a fork in the herd path where, people would branch off thinking the canister was over here, and then some thought it was over there, and there was, I remember, and it was one of my favorite hikes was to do Big Indian, Doubletop, Graham, Balsam Lake, right? You could just do a nice big loop. And I remember going up there and just seeing more and more traffic had passed through. Things are getting beaten down. And so eventually they shut it down. And I remember there was somebody posted on Instagram how they qualified for their 3,500 club patch in the middle of the night when the club delisted Graham and Doubletop, right?
Wow.
He still had those two mountains to do and was planning on doing them. And the next thing he knows, he finds out that they've been taken off the list. So, at midnight on the day they were delisted, he became a club member.
Wow.
Unbeknownst in his sleep, unbeknownst to him.
Right. Last person to do it for the 3,500 club on the list.
Yeah.
So the 3,500 club, at the time I was with the 3,500 club, I was second vice president with the club. And at this time, I was a regular person coming off the streets, just loving to hike, that I joined the club, and I had no clue about what was going on and such like that. So I was 100% overwhelmed with this topic, especially with the pandemic alone. And so the club was going back and forth with the Goulds. Like, why should we do this? Can we do this? What can we do to help? The club, of course, is about conservation and preservation of the Catskills. That's what they first started out to do in the 1960s with Bill and what was her name? Everett? Yeah, that's what their policy was, even though they wanted people to hike the peaks.
What were the reasons the Goulds gave for shutting down the mountains?
Preservation
of
the forest. And
okay.
The 3,500 club went with it. They were agreed with it, but a lot of stuff came up about why we should keep these peaks open. We can keep these peaks open. So there's a certain a thing called right of easement that came up with the club, that came up with a bunch of other topics as well, not just with the 3,500 club. A right of easement grants you the permission to go up there because you have been going up there a certain amount of times. Right, Tad? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So, better? Okay. So when you talk about a right of easement, a right of easement would either be set forth in a document, such as a declaration or grant giving you an easement, or giving a club or association or the general public. I mean, we see it all over in the Catskills where there are easements given to the DEC or the general public to walk over, access via private lands. And that's in a written document. And I think what you're referring to is what we would call a prescriptive easement, which is where the easement itself is not set forth in a writing, or the writing itself is not sufficiently definite to convey the access or right of use that the person wants to enforce. But the person's going to use that document, or if they don't have a document at all, they're going to use the custom and practice of going over somebody's land over a certain period of time. I think it's 10 years, creates what the law calls a prescriptive easement. So the issue then would be whether or not there were the requisite facts and circumstances that would support a claim to a prescriptive easement. And so why don't we, without diving into what those requirements are, because I think it could be debated whether or not they exist, and I could talk about some of them, but I'd want to know, why is it the club didn't pursue a claim to a prescriptive easement?
I want to also chime in and say that the club and the DEC were involved with this. So it was kind of like back and forth because, of course, these two peaks were on the 3,500 club list. And, of course, the DEC is involved with that as well. Yeah, well, the DEC goes out all the time and acquires easements, like, for example, to access the Esopus, to access the beaver kill. Yeah, they go out and they acquire easements so anglers can park their car at a parking area, walk through the defined easement area out to the waterway and fish. So that's one of the things the DEC does. And I know other areas in the Catskills, the DEC has these easements. And do you know whether or not at any point in time the DEC offered to buy an easement from the Gould family? That is what I didn't know. So you don't know if that occurred and whether or not a price was discussed for it or not discussed. And that was a big, question, of course. You have, like you said, there's been certain places that it's private property. You go from Barnum Road up to Thomas Cole, and there's that one stretch of mile that is not DEC property, but it's private property. But they allowed people to row up there to the trailhead, to the trail register, really. So that's one big question. Yeah. So now you can't force somebody to sell you an easement on the one hand, but we have heard recently in our talks about the Catskill reservoirs and the aqueduct that through the use of eminent domain, the state or another municipality having jurisdiction can force somebody to sell their land, can force somebody to sell an easement, can force somebody to sell a right of access. And do you know if the DEC ever considered that, forcing the Gould family to convey an easement through the use of eminent domain? I don't think they did. The one reason I don't think they did is because of the last name was the Goulds. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get to this, I'm making a note now, is I'll do a FOIL demand on the DEC, right? To see if there's any documents, memos, communications. I love doing those FOIL demands, freedom of information request, to see if the DEC worked up a plan or discussed using eminent domain to buy an easement forcefully from the Gould family, and or what we'll talk about next is filing a lawsuit against the Gould family to declare that the public over the course of time had acquired what is known as a prescriptive easement. And a prescriptive easement, if you satisfy the legal requirements, is something that you don't have to pay for, but you, by the nature of the term, you typically have to go to court and sue to have a judge declare that you have this prescriptive easement. So in general, a prescriptive easement requires you to use another's land without permission for 10 or more years under a claim that you have the right to do so. And as I've thought about this situation, one of the things that weakens the public's claim to having a prescriptive easement is people for centuries
had been calling Bill Scholl, the new caretaker as well, asking for permission. And so by the mere fact that the public was recognizing that they had to get permission to go on the Gould property, as opposed to having the right to go on their property, that weakens the claim for a prescriptive easement. On the other hand, I think one of the things that pissed off, I mean, that's a big legal term, pissed off the Gould family, was that people were going on their property without asking for permission. So you presumably had a group of people that were asking permission, then you had this group of people that weren't asking for permission, and that group of people arguably could be the group of people that made the claim for the prescriptive easement.
Yeah.
But they probably were not the organized group of people. I mean, I think the 3500 Club and all of their documentation leading up to the time that the Gould family took the mountains, out of use, the 3500 Club had on their webpage and in the canister and elsewhere that you need to access these mountains by permission.
Yep.
Which then means that the mountain club, the 3500 Club, would not be a good candidate to make this claim for a prescriptive easement.
Yep, because they weren't responsible.
Yeah, in my podcast opinion on this topic.
No, 100% I agree with you. It's just, that the destructive people that go up there and just, not care.
Yeah.
Kind of screwed us over, kind of fucked us over with these amazing mountains.
Yeah.
And we fought and we fought. And, I understand, being with the club, being a person who supports the club, I understand why they didn't want to pursue that, because you know what? There's assholes all over the place, and it screws. Yeah.
And also, we all know that the club doesn't have unlimited resources. And in comparison to the Gould family, whatever the club has, pales in comparison to the legal resources the Gould family has. I mean, presumably folks like the Goulds have a family law firm that works for the family, maybe not on a daily basis, but surely on a weekly or monthly basis. They have lawyers on retainer, and they're pushing back against a claim for a prescriptive easement. Would cost the Gould family some money, but in the scheme of what presumably they spend on lawyers over the course of a year or two, I don't think it would be a significant expense for the Gould family.
Yeah. And the 3500 Club is a 501c3. So we depend, for our donations and stuff, or for the donation. Sorry, I don't represent the 3500 Club. Let me put that. I got to put that Alex thing before we get into this, by the way. I don't represent them, but they would have been exhausted of their resources with just that, with going up against the Goulds for that. So, is there anything you want to add, like with the right to roam or something like that? Oh yeah.
So when you talk about the Gould family owning 5,000 acres in the Catskills, what my initial reaction is to consider that in some countries, such as Austria, Belarus, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Scotland, Sweden, etc., they have a widely recognized right to roam or freedom to roam, which permits the general public to walk on, access, use, and enjoy the land of others. Now, sometimes, and I think more recently than decades or hundreds of years ago, but more recently, these rights to roam are being codified, put into written law, because land ownership is changing and becoming divided, and people want more and more privacy on their land. The rights of the public under what has been traditionally called this right to roam, or every man's right, is being compromised. So in some countries, such as Scotland, they've put into written format what the right to roam is. Now, the practice, though, is ancient and longstanding in parts of North Northern Europe and has been regarded as so fundamental that it wasn't formalized initially. It was just this customer practice. And you can go back into feudal times and before feudal times to get into the origin of why it was essential that commoners and folks in the feudal period had to have access to the land barons' lands to survive. And now at the present time, people more recognize that it's not a question of just basic survival. It's more, a spiritual, a mind-body thing, therapeutic thing to get outside, to get outdoors, to get away from the urban environment and just roam, or as in Europe, they call it ramble, on the lands of others. So in Europe, this right to roam does not include the right to exploit the land of someone else, such as by hunting or logging or engaging in disruptive activities on the land, such as making fires or driving in vehicles. But in some countries, it does include the right to camp overnight, to forage and hunt for food. And in some countries, you have the ability to hunt, but it varies from country to country. I know when my family and I went to Ireland last year and stayed in the little town of Dingle, I did research this for that area that we were staying in, because I did plan some hikes and did hike right from the village of Dingle, the streets of Dingle. You just walk down a street, there'd be a gate leading into a field with like an old road going up it, and you could just walk, open the gate and walk into these lands. And the rule was that if the gate was open when you came to it, then you would walk through it and leave it open. And if the gate was closed when you came to it, you would open the gate, walk through, close the gate behind you, and continue on your journey. And you were permitted to go anywhere so long as you didn't disturb the animals, you didn't disturb crops, you didn't take growing crops. But if you wanted to forage the natural flora and fauna in the hillsides, you could do that. And I thought that was very cool. I mean, you just can't do that here. And as we know from the Gould family, you can't do it on Graham and Doubletop. But in parts of Northern Europe, you can ramble around.
Yeah. But, I also think, once again, my voice, I also think their thoughts with being out to ramble are different than ours. It seems like people up here are here to get the patch and not to experience that time in nature, when people over in Europe are really out there to get that experience and to get that feel.
Yeah, I don't know what the social dynamics are, if people in Europe are more into a holistic experience when they go outdoors than they are here, and people are more inclined to be peat baggers in the States. I like to think that when I do hike and hang out with others, I'm hiking and hanging out with the people who aren't peak baggers, that we're more the rambling sorts, and we're going to go out and enjoy our forest experience, and along the way maybe bag some peaks. But it's not about bagging the peak, it's about the journey along the way. But there sure is, I see it on social media, there's, for some people, a big emphasis on peak bagging for the sake of completing a list, earning a patch, and being able to say that they did a certain hike or a certain summit.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's, look, if that's what you enjoy when you go into the woods, that's what you enjoy, and that's good for you. It's good to get outdoors and to do these things. It's also good to play tennis if you're into tennis, or golf, people need to recreate. There's nothing wrong with recreation. I'm all for it. But the problem is there's more, as we have more and more people populating the world, and we have urban sprawl consuming more and more land and natural features, what happens to our right to recreate? The Catskill Mountains it's only so large. The area is only so large. And as the population increases, the ability of people to get to the mountains, like we talked about last week with these bus services that are going to be able to transport people into the mountains to engage in activities. And we also know that the DEC is studying how to handle and adjust the apparent overuse of the trail list summits, that there's going to be changes going forward. So what do we do to open up more land, make more land accessible, maintain a certain level of outdoor activities where you can not be, surrounded by others? I mean, I would imagine this Saturday, if I hiked Overlook or Wittenberg, I would find a lot of people at the summit. Yeah. But where I'm planning on going, I expect over the course of 10 miles that there's probably only going to be a mile or two segment where I'm likely to see people.
Nice. Yeah. Choose your own path sometimes if you know what you're doing. All right. So, Tad, let's get away from all the depressing stuff that's going on. So how about we give an experience you had on, let's say, Graham that is memorable?
I can honestly say I don't think I ever hiked Graham in and of itself. I think every time I went to Graham, I hiked it in connection with Doubletop.
Oh.
But I do remember one time, and I tried to explain this to Bill Scholl, and it took him a little while to comprehend what I was doing, but I told him I was going to go out the Sager Trail and bang a right and go up under what used to be the stretch that the power lines went up to the relay station. And so I didn't stay right along that fall line, if you will, that the power lines ran from the summit down. I zigzagged back and forth, went into the woods, checked out various things. I only did that one time. It was enough to satisfy my curiosity for that route up Graham, but it was pretty unique and interesting. And then once I got to the top, I headed over to Doubletop, came down almost the traditional way, but as I was coming down, I veered off to the east. You ever go to the waterfall that's in that drainage area between Doubletop and Big Indian?
I can't say that I have.
Yeah, there was a little waterfall. I'm going to say it was like a 8 to 12 foot, something like that, waterfall in there.
Towards the east or more towards the Seeger Trailhead?
I'm going to say it's more towards Big Indian as you're going down. Okay,
so no, I haven't.
Yeah. I was in that drainage area a couple times, and one of the times I remember fairly high up in that area, I ran into, I don't know what you search and rescue guys call them, but I call them grid lines. There was a bunch of string, right, running from tree to tree out there, and I later learned that a number of years before, a fellow, I think he was a hunter, I'm not sure, but it was lost for a few days in that area. And they were out searching for him for a few days and eventually found him. But I came across this string, if you will. It was like a white string. And I followed one for a ways and then left, and you find another one and follow it for a while. And I figured out it was either a stupid way of marking the boundary or that it was for a search and rescue operation. And it turned out to be the latter of those two.
Yeah.
I'll also say for those who didn't do it, and I don't think you can now, but one of the most miserable bushwhacks I ever did was bushwhacking up Big Indian through that drainage, because it's just nothing but a talus slope. It's just, all flat, almost like quarry rock going through there. Just slips a lot, slides a lot of just small vegetation to plow through.
Yeah.
Was only worth doing one time.
Yeah. And you talk about that string you found, but that was back in like 2016.
Yeah, I believe that was the year.
I was part of that. That's what got me in the search and rescue.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what got the search and rescue team started in the Catskills. So I forgot the guy's name, but he was located. He was missing. He had Alzheimer's. and he was missing. He was seen a lot walking up through the to the Seeger area, just going up to Doubletop, coming back usually a couple hours later, and he was missing for quite a while. Crazy thing is that I'm pretty sure Bill Scholl, or the caretaker of one of the mountains at the time, found him sitting on one of the creeks with his feet in the water.
Oh yeah, wow.
Just sitting there, and they was like, "Hey, wait a minute, you're missing." Like, and the guy was just like, "What? I'm just up here for a stroll."
Yeah, but he was out there for a few days, right?
Yeah, 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah.
So we went out during day one, and then a severe thunderstorm happened, and they called us off of the mountain. That was searching all of the area up along the banks of the river going to Arkville. I forgot what the creek is called down there through there, but we were searching from Arkville all the way up to there. So that's miles and miles, like 10 miles of that. And they were up. They've already searched the mountains. They already searched the trails. They already searched the herd path. And 2 days after that, I was called back there for the next day. And we did like a hasty search around this certain area. But then they eventually found him in one of the drainages, just having his feet in the water.
So were you part of the crew that was laying down that grid line, that string?
No, not at that time.
No. Huh.
At that time, it was the Forest Rangers. The Forest Rangers were doing that. That was a grid search.
Yeah.
But that was one of my fond memories. Jesus, that was one of my fond memories of going up Graham. Kind of Graham for the first time. And I approached Graham once with the power lines as well. And we followed the power lines all the way up the ridge, and it was a great ascent going up, and then you hit that one part of Graham where you just hit steepness and it just goes straight up. It's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And then you hit those trees that you can almost, you can't jump to touch the top of them, but you can feel like you can because they're so low to the ground.
Yeah.
And on the way back down, we went down through the kind of like the eastern slope, the ridge going back into Graham that leads into what I call the V of Doubletop and Graham. It's just unique, a geological area that it's just seriously sloped like a V. I could step on one side and step on the other and be on Graham and Doubletop at the same time.
Yeah, and so for me, there's other areas that are like that in the Catskills, but one of the things I remember is my first time hiking that loop, Doubletop, Graham, Balsam Lake, is I took the herd path up to Doubletop, and then I banged a right and headed over towards Graham, and I'm going down into the V, the saddle, and I ran into an area where it was just kind of this gnarly, somewhat talus, somewhat plucked up boulder area, and so I climbed out of it and went more to, I guess, the north and headed into the coal that way. And as I come over to Graham, it was in the spring, so you could see up Graham from the depth of that V. And I looked at it and I said, holy shit, this is pretty steep, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, but that's okay. I'm going to buy this in 100-foot vertical chunks at a time. I'm going to hike up 100 vertical feet, take a break, hike up another 100 vertical feet, take a break. And I hike with this little altimeter watch. So I was going to pace myself up it. And I find myself getting to 75 feet up that first leg. And it's like, no way. I had to stop. Then the next bite I took, I'm down to 50 feet. And eventually it was just I'm going 10 steps, it seems. And I'm stopping to catch my breath. It was just incredibly steep. It was, really hard to get up going right up the center. And so I learned from that first experience to head a little bit further to the left of the midline. And it was much better going up that way. So that became my preferred route for the rest of the times I went through there. I actually led some group hikes through there. It's a lot of fun. I had a good time doing that hike because you go through the the forest on top of Graham, which was that, more of an alpine forest. Then you hit the pygmy forest, the alpine forest on Doubletop, then the pygmy forest on Graham, and then you go into the more of the spruce forests on Balsam Lake.
Yeah.
End it with the fire tower, typically around sunset, made for a good day.
Yeah. And then, those times that area leading from Doubletop up to Graham was absolutely awesome. Steep ledges everywhere, such like that. And, one time I went up with my friend John, who was previously on the show, and we went up during the winter. And when we took the usual path up Graham, we started hitting like towards the steep areas. And all of a sudden, the weather changed dramatically. It went from, 35 degrees down to 0 degrees, down with like 20-mile-per-hour winds. I wouldn't say snow, but it was a nice sheet of like ice and fog and mist, and every tree was hanging low. And once again, Jesus, from that area, we had to crawl all the way up to Graham, and it was just amazing experience. And we only spent probably a good 15 seconds on top of Graham. And I was like, we gotta get out of here. This is like crappy conditions. It's too cold. It's too windy. It's stuff like that. And we headed on our way back down, and we butt slid. Well, we kind of like shooted down, like luge shooted down to the lesser steep parts of Graham, where it kind of like breaks over to the left, and it leads onto the path, like the truck path or something, the Jeep path.
So did you ever go down Turner Hollow?
To the Gulf of Mexico?
No, on the other side.
Oh, of Doubletop and Graham?
Yeah.
I could see if I went down there. I'm pretty sure I have.
As you're on the Jeep trail going up to Graham, heading uphill, Turner Hollow would be a kind of a left turn to the north, and it switchbacks back and forth. It's a lovely area in there. At least it starts off that way. A lot of hardwood forest in that area, and you're going down this old road that back when it was built, it was improved. There was rock retaining walls, things of that nature. But eventually, as you get down, it just turns into a sea of nettles.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just like a huge nettle field. And one time I went up there with two friends. We were just doing Doubletop and Graham. And I told them, this is bushwhacking wear, pants, long sleeves. They both show up with shorts and short sleeves. And the one fellow, we're going down Turner Hollow. We're somewhat ahead of them, maybe 20, 25 yards. And we hear something. We look back, and in one of these nettle fields, he had fallen down. And it's one of these things where it seemed to take him forever to get up, and he's tossing and he's turning and he's starting to get up and he's slipping and falling, and he's just like making love to these nettles. And sure enough, when he stands up, he's all red and, itching his skin. It's kind of a funny sight. So he got his chops busted. But as you went further down Turner Hollow, you come to a point, I'm going to say, no, I pulled it up here on the map that,
I see it.
Yeah, it was about a half a mile. No, I'm going to say 1,500 feet from the road. There was a nice waterfall down there. Yeah. So at Turner Hollow, there was that waterfall, and then there was another one deeper in the Gould property. Actually, not that far off the old herd path as I look at my map now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the Flatiron. Is that part of the Flatiron Buck? No, it's a little bit. That's a little bit to the south.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we shouldn't be talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, we don't. Yeah.
Interest.
People can't go over there if you don't mention our names.
Yes. Yes.
We don't know you.
Let's hope once again that they're gonna resume access to these mountains, because they were special. I gotta admit, but at the same time, we should preserve them, but
Well, we can do what they do in Europe is they do these mass trespasses, right? Where they organize a group of hundreds of people and protest by trespassing on people's lands. Now, I don't know how much headway you'd make with the Gould family doing that. They seem to be set in their ways, and they don't care about allowing some limited level of access. I mean, frankly, if they were really concerned about conservation, I don't know why they had a relay tower on the top of Graham then.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be of the conservation mindset, but maybe it was, towards the public good that they were allowing television signal to get into the valley, and that seems to be useful. I don't know if they profited from that or not, but surely, given the public interest in climbing these two mountains, had they allowed a marked trail to be established, that would have minimized their concerns, and it would probably have lessened the level of impact that's occurring now from all of the people bushwhacking over to South Doubletop from Big Indian and/or Pigeon Brook, the Frost Valley area.
Yeah. It's a big question that goes up in the runs, especially us with the bushwhackers and us that have been with the 3500 Club for a while now. Are they doing this for the good, or like, what are they doing this for? Could the right of easement or the marked trails could have been the same way as preserving it as not, will we see them back? Will we not? Big question. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you can get over to South Doubletop. It's almost as good as getting to Doubletop proper on the one hand. On the other hand, Graham is off limits, and you can't tell me that you shut down Graham for the purpose of preservation. I mean, after all, I would imagine that 80% of the people that went to Graham went up the Jeep Trail.
Yep.
Okay. So
exactly.
That's a road. You could drive your Jeep up it, and you got people walking on it. It doesn't seem to be a big deal, especially when they're going to a cleared out area where the old relay tower was, and the remains of it are. So yeah, who even knows that anyone in the Graham family knows that the caretaker shut this down?
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe the Goulds will hear this and they'll want to come through.
Yeah, I'm sure they're frequent listeners.
Yeah, right.
They're hanging out by their lake up there at the lodge fishing.
Yeah. All right. So this is 2 hours and 7 minutes. 2 hours. Nice. Good discussion about Graham and Doubletop. So, post-hike brews and bites. Got anything besides Stewart's, buddy? Come on. Give me some.
Well, I haven't been hiking. You're going to have to, we talked about Sal's Pizza and how you shouldn't microwave your day old pizza. It's just not good. But like I said, I'm going out this weekend. Maybe I'll have some good food story for you.
Next week.
Yeah. I'll try one of those pizza flavored Cliff Bars.
I'd suggest getting pizza at Brio's. How about that?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I could kind of go back that way and do it.
Nice.
Sure.
All right. So once again, thank you to the monthly supporters and the monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show, believe in the show. Thank you to everyone who is still listening to the show after 124 episodes. Really appreciate it. Once again, June 8th, we'll be at the Catskill Outdoor Expo, and we will just be kind of promoting the show. I don't know if we'll do some live stuff or not, but come down and chat with us. We'd love to see you there. Love to have a good time. So, sound good, Tad?
Sounds good. You sound a little tired, Stosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like, you gotta train for these marathon sessions.
My throat is getting killed, man.
Yeah. All right.
So have a good night, Tad.
You too, buddy.
Chat with you in a little bit.
Excellent.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.